Hello, hello. Yes. um, Hi, everybody, and I'm very happy to be here with you since Wednesday. And we made a great visit of Combarel and Cap Blanc yesterday. So now, this morning I will talk about 3D models and try to present you the policy of French Culture Ministry and Centre National de Préhistoire to this question about 3D models. That's why I write my presentation in English again for try to be clear with you. in 25 minutes, present you the whole policy, kind of policy with this question. The 3D ecosystem of Paleolithic rock art heritage. So I will outline the main aspect of the 3D digital ecosystem applied to rock art. We speak of a digital ecosystem because this process involves techniques, methods, tools, as well as various heritage contexts and a large number of human actors who interact together. Some people told me, yeah, it's like almost human-machine interaction. So it's not only tools, it's not only machine, it's all about. That's why we'll talk about ecosystem. Non, ça va. You will see some diapositive. It's for remind you something about you talk about. We mentioned several times now, as you saw during your cave visit, that Paleolithic rock art site represent a fragile and unique heritage to the relics and that may contain in the complexity these sites present in terms of conservation and study. You saw the caves, but also rock shelters, very different situation and different question of conservation. Hop. Non, c'est pas ça. C'est ça. These traces that you can saw yesterday evoked a very particular heritage. It's images, evoke emotions in these figurative images on parietal art. As you can saw yesterday, they can be engraving, painting, or sculpture, visible to the whole group, but sometimes hidden. This depiction can be made more readable or visible in different ways when discovered in the light of torches, fire, and our actual light, not the same view. I think you have all in your mind, or maybe soon, all these images of this era, Lascaux, Chauvet, Cosquer. But now for you, Combarel, you saw all these engravings of Combarel cave yesterday, Rouffignac, Cap Blanc, Font de Gaume. The graphic universe that Paleolithic population inscribed on the cave wall evoke, as you see, animal world with animal behavior, attitude, and relationships. But you know also that it's not only animals, also humans. C'est plus fort que moi. These images are also numerically fewer than animals, even if this comparison for me is not entirely relevant. These images directly reflect animals and humans, how these people conceived of themselves, their body, and their place within the continuum of living being. Perhaps all of these images, both human and animals, and you know mixed animals and human, evoke the multiple connection these people must have considered to understand and explain the surrounding world. Since the emergence of prehistoric as a scientific field in the late 19th century, researchers, archaeologists, and prehistorians have developed strategy both to document what was observed in darkness of caves and preserve records, understand, and share the discovery with a wide audience. How to put animals in dark cave outside for everyone. From direct tracing for surface recording through photography, computer graphic, 3D now, and maybe now on tomorrow artificial intelligence, prehistoric archaeology has always drawn from the tools of its era to explore the complex underground world. Each period has seen significant methodological and technical change. For instance, historical, the shift from direct tracing to indirect recording introduced new distortions to manage, while the transition to digital method in the 19 brought advantage but also challenges such as file preservation and image format selection. Today, we face an exponential use of 3D digital tools, which also come with limitations. For example, and I know that we discuss it about with some people here, how can ensure there's archiving for future generation of this 3D data model, particularly in the context now of climate crisis changing. As digital technology has an impact also on climate changes. Through history, archaeologists have faced the technical limitation of their time, faced with the necessary need for precision and the pursuit of objectivity. Archaeologists have always been at the forefront of innovation and invention. This goes beyond the sole framework of studying periodic art. Here you can see some example of tracing from the early 19th century, 20th century. The quest of precision was one of methodological foundation of this early work in a discipline that was only a few decades old at this time. The recording of surfaces of wall is a central approach in the study of periodic art. As always, encountered challenges related to distortion and changing in perspective between a subject in relief and its representation in 2 dimensions. And I like this example here of the change of images. One called a real tracing of the rhino, and a boy made a tracing also, but it's corrigé the animal form to a better way. And I like this tracing of Katharina Mar from Venus collection. So you another kind of tracing of bison of Altamira, and she tried to show the relief by ombrage, by the work of shadow. Yes, very beautiful. And no, pas très connu le relevé de Katharina Mar. For about 15 years now, 15 ans, 3D digital tools have been widely used in archaeology, particularly in prehistoric archaeology, to document, collect, process, and analyze data. In the study of decorated caves, mostly traditional, but we have maybe with more time we can develop that. But 2 methods, and you know about maybe, and laser scanning or technology of laser, and by photo we call photogrammetry. The first step involve acquiring the object of heritage site, depending on the scale on the project or its required precision. The methods may vary and combine it. The processing phase involves collecting the acquired information, cleaning, calibration, and other manipulation that will then allow for the interpretation at the end of the data. We call that the rendering. Depending on the project, this rendering can vary, offering different level of precision or different visual treatment. It is also an opportunity to interpret archaeological data. For example, allow us to view the object in this assumed original site. This is where we enter the realm of data interpretation in research. In the study of periodic art, and I will explain quickly, but maybe then we can discuss. Three examples of contribution of 3D tool can be presented. Firstly, the mapping of cave walls, which can now be done directly on 3D model by the tracing directly in 3D. These three researches from the limitation imposed by distortion in the projection process. 3D technology allows for changes in scale and, for example, enable modeling data, particularly in the context of climate tracking and the conservation of decorated caves. Finally, 3D allows for the simulation of archaeological knowledge, especially recording the role of lighting in the readability, visibility, and accessibility of images, such as through the use of virtual torch. And we work with a Spanish team, a lot of projects to simulation of the visual of art with 3D modeling. Today, 3D ecosystems are ubiquitous in periodic art research, whether for documenting rock art or adopting a comparative approach between distant sites, as well as see this Friday, the contribution of 3D technology to research are considerable. You can compare different sites with a 3D model. 3D enables the assessment of volume, and relief dimension in wall analysis, transitioning from a two-dimensional approach to surface. It is now possible to document the wall while considering volumetric issue, analyzing engravings, and examine anything that impacts the surface. Here, it involves a cartographic tracing conducted directly on the 3D model. This is why the National Centre of Prehistory has published a methodological guide to assist and support anyone wishing to carry out a 3D tracing on the model. And you can find, like Wednesday, all this documentation in French cultural website directly. But it's in French. But maybe we can translate this document in English. It is possible now to make 3D tracing that include also pigment, paint, and other coloring material contribution. This is the case here, for example, with a tracing of painting of Lascaux. Unlike a two-dimensional survey, which inevitably involves distortion related to the shape of the wall, it is possible now to directly analyze the relationship between the shape and the images and the morphology on the surface. This work can be done at the scale of a sector of a wall, but we can also make this work on a large scale of sites. Here in the Mami Lipan, we apply this method about 20 meters of painting work shelter. So we can work on the dimension of a very small part of a wall, but also in a large scale of the site. Multidisciplinary work thus fosters methodological and technical innovation to leverage 3D digital data. This approach not only enables the development of research, but also contributes to the documentation, conservation, and archiving of rock art sites. The 3D model has now become a central hub for connecting and integrating knowledge from the most diverse specialty across archaeology and conservation. It is essential to facilitate the integration of expert perspective and their analysis of any heritage of object or collective interest. To this end, the National Centre of Prehistory participated in the aioli project. Aioli, it's like a French sauce with oliva. Aioli. Garlic, yeah, exactly. And we work with the CNRS team MAP in a mutual work to this project. This project exemplifies effort to spatially manage data in 3 dimensions, enable the handling of multiple layers of spatial annotation centered on heritage project. We can draw all together on the same model with different projects. In the era now of 3D digital technology, putting all the data into perspective is essential for archaeological conservation and research, as well as for sharing this very fragile heritage. It is necessary to properly approach a corpus that is very heterogeneous. Thus, in order to ensure a long-term sustainability of data for future generations, it is necessary to properly consider the data life cycle. Therefore, the national policy strongly encourages the use of interoperable open source tools, not private tools, but open source tools that enable effective management of all stages of data creation from acquisition to archiving. The interoperable tools we implement at the National Centre of Prehistory include document management tools, geographic information system, chronological database, which we call chronogram, and the 3D process ecosystem. Oh, this was in French. Sorry, I didn't translate this. We are actively contributing to the implementation of 3D resource management that incorporate metadata as well as the standardization and alignment of control vocabulary. This work is conducted in close collaboration with research unit as part of the agreement between French Ministry of Culture and the CNRS. These efforts are carried out in partnership with the Ministry of Culture's digital. These efforts are carried out in partnership with also the Ministry of Culture's digital service and 3D Consortium for Humanities at CNRS, which brings together CNRS, Ministry of Culture, university, and private partners the same way to use 3D model. I think, and I know that we speak about with some of you yesterday, it's crucial now to establish, I don't know how to say in English, a proper governance of data, governance of digital data to maintain direct control over data, its accessibility and its archiving. Recent events, and you know maybe such as the global Microsoft outage in July, have undiscovered the extent of our dependence on private cloud platform. Continuing our effort to build a comprehensive policy for 3D data, the National Centre of Prehistory, in collaboration also with the CNRS team, published another one, sorry, there's a lot of, another one, methodological guide, also in French, but there were a lot of images, and we can translate in English also if you want. A methodological data guide in 2017 now on the description of metadata to digital acquisition. This guide was aimed at agents from Regional Cultural Affairs Department working in conservation or research to highlight the importance of metadata at every stage of 3D digital construction process. Yes, je pense que fini. As the guide reminds us, it is important to have the raw data along with the metadata, meaning raw file of photo in case of further processing of this photo is needed. Furthermore, it's important to note now to under national public heritage, for example, all the photos made for photogrammetry are public data, not a private data of the photographer. All of this digital data created by French state serve research and conservation, but also to the promotion of rock art heritage. 3D technology allows us to conceive large-scale replica in various ways. Since the closure of Lascaux and the creation of the first cave replica, Lascaux II, France has developed a unique expertise in creating site replica. However, this replica project highlights three key elements that we believe are important to discuss, but maybe we can discuss of this replica problematics with Melanie. Then I know you present Chauvet replica example. I will finish to discuss about questions, some questions. How can we preserve the authenticity of a place, like a decorated cave, in a limited space, for example, imposing technical challenge and fitting into a project of artificial development? The reproducibility of this depicted work is based on choices that must simultaneously ensure the emotion and the connection of the public with these images. We talk about the replica or the work of Gilles Tozello or Alain Dalis for different ways of made replica, and so I will pass this. I just want to show this example because it's another example of replica. We talk about Chauvet, Cosquer, and Lascaux, but there's another one made original choices to make the replica. Is another site. It's a rock consortium site, an open rock shelter, close to the public. And since 2008, there's a replica. How to show to the public a rock shelter, not a dark place of a cave, but an open site. On Cap Blanc is the original site open to the public, and rock consortium is not open, so it's a replica. Rock shelter with sculpture surface was made accessible through an exhibition that presented replica of a different nature. Visitor can see an animated digital replica with projection on the wall to bring the frieze to life. There is also a second replica outdoor where visitors are guided through the site with a mediator, with a guide, interpreting with them the decorated sculpture. The concept of interpretation on the Rock Consortium Center was central on the project, the concept of interpretation, meaning the desire to actively involve the public in their processing of their own understanding of the images. The decorated wall is not no longer just the end of the visit, but it's the beginning of the the meeting with the sculptor and the public nowadays. Sorry to finish on the this graphic, but Stefan Koenig asked me if it's possible to present les enjeux. All this replica and so we can tell Stefan all this replica and restitution projects based on three digital clones are not only at the heart of heritage preservation, but also with the conservation, central challenge to the long-term conservation and safeguarding of this heritage. To recap, the Paris Agreement for Climate Change in 2015 aimed for a reduction in greenhouse gas emission to limit the temperature rise to below 2 degrees. It will be difficult to respect. Maybe we are here now. So how to conserve the cave? The temperature rise is evident in the climate change monitoring of cave, which show an increase in temperature consist with a predictive model of the IPCC. The rise, along with the second systemic description, is causing, among other things, a rise in sea level, like Glasgow, like Coscar, in the case of Coscar Cave, for example. No. Yes, I didn't want again to end, so I told Stefan, we didn't finish with this, but we finished with it. To end such a depressing note, even though it's very real when we look at the climate monitoring. Instead, I would like to return to the essential role that space is dedicated to the restitution of degraded sites, play with the public. This space serves a crossroad where moments of discovery and wonder occur, but also opportunity for sharing and exchange, contributing to the empowerment of today's and tomorrow's citizens. Thank you for your attention.
Just a word. If you have question, please wait for me to give you the microphone, because we record everything and we can only hear when you are speaking in the microphone.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to ask about the open source. In our experience, what we found is that there is this push towards using an open source system and accessible system. But when you buy into it, something like Arches or all of these open source systems, they often don't really work for you. And you have to make adjustments. And then those adjustments are extremely expensive. So who has been designing your system? And how do you get that done at a reasonable cost?
When we talk about open data, it's how do you say in English? It's a volonté. We want to go to the open data horizon. It's not really always possible because of all stage of 3D model digitization, acquiring, treatment, and render. Sometimes we need to use private tools, but we try all together to go away from that most possible. But it's truly not always possible. So we work with a university project, PhD project, to build an ecosystem, free open system. That's why, for example, for GIS, we work with QGIS and not with S3 or ArcView, for example. But it's difficult because at the meantime, ArcView work with 3D system. QGIS not yet. So we push a project to do that. For work directly on 3D model, we use another, it's called Blender, but it's very hard to use it. Emeline, you come to see us to use this, but I think it will be possible. It's sometimes a little war with the private interest, but so that's why more we are together and more it will be possible. For photogrammetry, for example, maybe you know all Metashape. It's private, and Russian also now. So that's why you have another solution. It's called Reality Capture. It's now free. You can use it and you can learn with us. So you can try YouTube tuto. But for archiving, you have also free tools to archiving your metadata or your data. So that's why if you want, you don't hesitate to write us an email to give you all the ecosystem, open ecosystem possible to use on your project.
Other question? It's the same or another? You wanted to
continue. Oh, okay. Thank you. You also said that the data that you generate is open to the public. How open to the public is that? Does anyone, can anyone access it? I am just thinking about the conflict between the fact that your 3D information is open to the public, yet when people visit the sites, they can't take the photographs. So how open to the public is that?
That's why a very huge discussion of that. How do you say in English? Recently, we had in France some jurisprudence of some law. That's why I mentioned, for example, because we had some problem in France with the photogrammetry models sometimes, because the people who doing photogrammetry told, oh yes, it's my photo. Yes, but when you made photo for photogrammetry, we don't consider that you have an intellectual work. It's not a creation, okay? It's technical images to do exactly replica. So that's why for each step, we try to clarify the status of the creation. But in all the life cycle, sometimes the data are not the same status. For example, photogrammetry is considered by open data. Okay, so for example, French service, they want some model, so they pay a private industry to make photogrammetry, and now we demand to the private to give to the service all the data. No right on that. But in this life cycle, sometimes the private use a special algorithm or his own treatment. So on the treatment in 3D model, there can be a copyright. Okay? But on the result is the same result of the beginning, the object and the result is the same. We consider that result made by this operation, it's also an open, it's a public data. So that's why in National Centre of Prehistory, we normally received all the work of photogrammetry and 3D models, and sometimes movie makers, filmmakers, a lot of people ask us to use this model. So we try to discuss the better condition for give this data for the use, and accompany the project to a good use of this data at the end. But it's difficult because nowadays a lot of actors publish sometimes models in a web platform, for example, Sketchfab, and another people go to the Sketchfab, can take the model and imprint it in 3D and makes, I don't know, a little a mug, for example, and after they can sell it or sold it. Yes, so it's a very complex situation that we can try to see each situation of precisely case to use. But, and we discussed about that yesterday, and Frédéric say that in French we have a conflictual relation sometimes with private concept of the data and the public concept of the data. So it's like the cave. You're right. In Spanish, for example, in Spain, the underground is public domain, or in French, is private. And I forgot. Comment on rend public les données?
Make accessible to public. Comment?
Ah. Oui, comment? We can prêter. But recently in CNP we discussed about that, and comment we accompany it. They ask us, and we respond for what, and then we discuss all together, and we make an agreement, or we call that cahier des charges, or we call that we're reading the text to use that. They don't pay, so when then at the end we give the data, but with some agreement for that.
My question is just about the storage of data in the long term. Particularly if you're working with universities and things like that. In our experience, the university is initially very keen to develop these projects and allow us storage space, and then 5 years later they knock you off and you lose everything. Is there a long-term plan, and how does that work in terms of the national versus universities versus everybody in terms of ensuring that the data is looked after?
It's another very difficult situation, because you have a lot of experiment in university, in CNRS. So nowadays, with the numerical service of the French Culture Ministry, they call a policy of data, and so we try to collect together all these experiments. For example, in Consortium 3D. But also, this is a European question also, because you have a youth project, ANR, ERC project, to build a European governance of data, for example. But it's very difficult problem, because at our level, we still use disque dur, local archive. But it's very difficult because a local archive is very fragile. You cannot open it, and sometimes they fall and buff, finish. So we try to build a local, a cloud system, but we need some time to process. We made a project in 2017 that called Cave Art Project with a map CNRS. But we have to discuss now with the numerical service of Ministry of Culture to put that in a norm, in a good norm of use, with a good property. So it's a construction, but the solutions are still various of kind of type of solution.
Thank you, Oscar. I think we can.